John, what is that?
In a quiet village tucked away amidst rolling hills, life followed a simple and predictable rhythm. The villagers were cheerful and known for their love of meat, which had become a staple in every household. Meat was so cheap that even the poorest families could afford it daily. This affordability was thanks to John's Butchery, a popular spot that attracted customers from all corners of the village. John, with his friendly demeanor and ever-present smile, was well liked by everyone. His butchery was famous for selling the softest and most succulent meat at prices no one could rival. However, beneath this cheerful facade, a dark shadow loomed over the village. People were being murdered under mysterious circumstances. Every few days, whispers of a new death spread like wildfire, yet no one could understand who was behind the killings or why they were happening. The villagers, too consumed with their daily routines and obsession with cheap meat, chose to ignore their fears and focus on the simple pleasures of life. One sunny afternoon, Toby, a jovial man known for his humor and curiosity, visited John's Butchery. He was there to buy his usual supply of meat, but also needed an empty bag to carry some charcoal he had purchased earlier. "Hey, John," Toby called out, leaning over the wooden counter. "Do you have an empty gunya I can use to pack my charcoal? You know I can't walk home balancing a sack on my head like some circus act." John laughed, digging through a pile of old bags in the corner. "Ah, Toby, you're always full of jokes. Here, take this bag. Just don't complain if your charcoal turns into gold." Toby chuckled, took the bag, and continued his journey home, unaware that the bag John handed him was no ordinary sack. As Toby walked along the dusty village path, he noticed an unusual dampness in the bag. A metallic smell began to waft up to his nostrils, making him stop in his tracks. "What is this now?" he muttered, his curiosity piqued. Stopping under the shade of a large mango tree, he decided to inspect the bag. He untied it slowly, his heart pounding with anticipation. What he found inside made his knees wobble and his heart race. Nestled among faint traces of blood was a severed human hand. Toby froze, unable to process what he was seeing. Dropping the bag with a thud, he stepped back, muttering, "Hey, Toby, what have you done to deserve this? Am I dreaming, or has John started selling body parts instead of nyama?" Even in his shock, Toby couldn't resist his habit of cracking jokes. "But Toby, who even packs charcoal with a hand? What will the ancestors say if they see me like this?" Meanwhile, across the village, a family had invited a visitor for lunch. They had purchased meat from John's Butchery and prepared a hearty meal. The visitor, a man with refined taste and a sharp tongue, took a bite of the stew and immediately paused, his face contorted in confusion. "This meat," he began, waving his spoon, "tastes strange. Are you sure this is cow meat? It's soft, yes, but it has a taste I can't place. Are we eating nyama or nyama nyama?" The family burst into laughter, brushing off his concerns. "Visitor, what are you talking about? This is the finest meat in the village. You must just have a fancy tongue," one of them teased. But the visitor remained skeptical. He leaned closer to the pot, sniffing the stew, and whispered under his breath, "This doesn't smell like any cow I've ever known. Is this meat really from John's Butchery? Or did you go hunting in the graveyard?" The room erupted in laughter, but a seed of doubt had been planted. Toby, still clutching the blood-stained bag, decided he couldn't let the matter rest. He marched back to John's Butchery, his heart pounding with fear, but his wit intact. "John," he bellowed as he reached the counter, "what in the name of all things holy did you give me? Am I a charcoal seller or a mortician?" John, confused, looked at the bag and froze. His face turned pale and he stammered, Toby, what do you mean?" "I gave you an empty bag, didn't I?" Toby slammed the bag on the counter, opened it, and stepped back. "Look for yourself. This is not an empty bag. This is evidence. If the police find me, do you think they'll believe I was just packing charcoal?" John's eyes widened in horror as he saw the hand. He clutched his head, muttering, "No, no, this can't be happening. How did this get here?" News of Toby's discovery spread through the village like wildfire. People began to whisper about John's butchery and the mysterious disappearances that had plagued the community. The visitors' earlier comments about the strange taste of the meat took on a chilling new significance. One elderly villager, known for his sharp tongue, remarked, "Ah, so this is why John's meat is so cheap and soft. We've been eating nyama ya watu, human meat, all along. No wonder my dreams have been full of ghosts lately." Another chimed in, "And I thought I was getting fat because of good cooking." "Hey, John has been feeding us double portions of mystery meat." As pressure mounted, John was forced to reveal a dark secret. He confessed that he had been blackmailed by a ruthless gang into disposing of their victims by turning them into meat for his butchery. His fear of retaliation had kept him silent. But now, the truth was out. The villagers were horrified and furious. They gathered at the town square, demanding justice and vowing never to set foot in John's butchery again. Meanwhile, Toby, ever the comedian, couldn't resist one last quip. John, you've turned us into accidental cannibals, but at least now we know why your nyama was always tender. It was marinated in secrets." The village erupted in laughter, even as they struggled to process the gravity of the situation. Despite the humor, the reality was grim, and the villagers knew they had to act. With the police now involved, John was arrested, and the gang behind the killings was hunted down. The butchery was permanently closed, leaving the villagers to rethink their dietary habits. Toby, though still shaken, became something of a local hero for exposing the truth. The visitor, who had initially raised suspicions about the meat, left the village shortly after, muttering, "I knew it wasn't cow meat. Next time, I'm bringing my own lunch." Life in the village slowly returned to normal, but the memory of John's butchery lingered. It became a cautionary tale, a reminder that sometimes the cheapest things come at the highest cost. As for Toby, he remained as humorous as ever, often recounting his experience with the bag of charcoal and the human hand. "And that," he would say with a chuckle, "is why I'll never trust a free gunya again." Amara was a lively and outspoken woman, known for her quick wit and love for a good bargain. She had been a regular at John's butchery before the sudden closure that left the villagers buzzing with rumors. One bright morning, she made her way to the butchery, only to find the shutters down and the shop eerily quiet. A deep frown spread across her face as she stood there, hands on her hips. What kind of nonsense is this?" she muttered loudly, drawing the attention of passers-by. "Why would they close the only butchery where you get enough meat? These other butcheries, she shook her head vigorously. "They sell more bones than meat. You cook for hours only to serve soup and skeletons." The crowd around her chuckled at her animated complaints. "John's meat was always soft and ready in no time," she continued, her voice rising. "But now, I have to go to these useless butcheries. By the time the meat is ready, you've lost your appetite. This village, no one wants to make life easy." Reluctantly, Amara walked to another butchery, bought some meat, and returned home. That evening, she sat impatiently by the fire as the pot boiled. The meat was taking longer than usual to cook, and her irritation grew. "This is why I'll never buy meat from anywhere else again," she grumbled. "John's meat, no matter what people say, always made life simple." Her children, sitting nearby, giggled at their mother's frustration. "Mummy, is the meat not ready yet?" one of them teased. Amara shot them a look. "Keep quiet, you little stomachs. Do you think I'm a magician?" A week later, Amara had a visitor, her cousin Chinyere, who had traveled from another village. Over lunch, they talked about everything from family gossip to village rumors. It didn't take long before the conversation turned to John's butchery. Amara, Chinyere began, lowering her voice dramatically. Have you heard what people are saying about John's butchery? Amara, curious but skeptical, leaned in. Eh? What are they saying this time? Chinyere shook her head, her face a mask of concern. They're saying the meat John sold wasn't goat or cow meat. Amara laughed out loud, waving her hand dismissively. Ah, Chinyere, you people and your stories. If it wasn't goat or cow meat, then what was it? Chicken? No, Amara, Chinyere replied solemnly. People are saying it was human meat. Amara's laughter died in her throat. She stared at her cousin, waiting for the punchline, but Chinyere's expression remained serious. Ah, you're joking, Amara said, shaking her head. I have heard that nonsense before, but I don't believe it. How can a whole John sell human meat? He has children like us. He's not a devil. Chinyere leaned closer. Amara, I'm telling you what I've heard. Even the police were involved. They say they found something in his butchery that shouldn't have been there. Amara raised her eyebrows, but refused to be convinced. People will always talk. Until I see proof, I won't believe such rubbish. Later that week, Amara visited her aunt in a nearby village. As they sat under the shade of a mango tree, Amara recounted the rumors swirling around John's butchery. Auntie, have you heard what they're saying about John's butchery? She asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. Her aunt sighed and nodded. Ah, my daughter, I have heard. It's not good. People are saying terrible things. If it's true, then may God forgive us for what we've eaten. Amara shook her head. I still don't believe it. John has been in this village for years. How can he do such a thing? And if it's true, why didn't anyone notice earlier? Her aunt shrugged. These are strange times, Amara. Even the ones we trust can do the unthinkable. But as for me, I've stopped buying meat altogether. Better to eat beans and live in peace. Back at home, Amara's children had also heard snippets of the rumors at school. One evening, as the family sat down for dinner, the youngest child blurted out, Mummy, did you buy this meat from John's butchery? Amara's spoon paused mid-air. She gave the child a sharp look. Why are you asking me such silly questions? Eat your food and stop talking nonsense. The older sibling joined in, giggling. But, Mummy, they said at school that people used to buy human meat from there. This meat tastes like... Will you keep quiet? Amara snapped, slamming her spoon on the table. Do you think I have time to listen to children's foolish talk? Eat your food and let me hear word. The children exchanged knowing glances, but said no more. Amara, however, couldn't shake the unease their words had stirred in her. That night, as she lay in bed, her mind replayed everything she had heard. The rumors from Chinyere, the whispers at her aunt's house, and now her children's questions, all weighed heavily on her. The next morning, she decided to visit the village market, hoping to clear her head and, perhaps, find some clarity. As she walked past the now-abandoned butchery, a group of women stood gossiping nearby. Amara, one of them called out, have you stopped eating meat too, or are you one of the brave ones still risking it? Amara rolled her eyes. You people and your gossip. Are you now inspectors of meat? Leave me alone. The women laughed, one of them adding, just be careful, oh. You don't want your children asking you funny questions at dinner again. Amara waved them off, but deep down, their words stung. She couldn't help but wonder, was there any truth to the rumors? Or was it all just village talk? As she bought vegetables and beans, she muttered under her breath, hey, this village will not kill me with their stories. If I stop eating meat, what will I eat? Grass. Back at home, the children continued to press her, their curiosity undeterred. "Mummy, why don't you want to talk about John's butchery?" one of them asked one evening. "Because I'm tired of all this talk," Amara replied, her voice tinged with frustration. "What happened there has nothing to do with us. Now finish your homework and stop asking me foolish questions." But even as she tried to dismiss the issue, the weight of the rumors hung over her like a dark cloud. She found herself avoiding the market, cooking less meat, and spending more time questioning everything she once believed. Amara's once cheerful demeanor began to fade, replaced by a quiet wariness. The village had changed, and so had she. Even as life went on, the shadow of John's butchery remained, a chilling reminder that not everything is as it seems. The rumors about John's butchery had spread like wildfire. Villagers whispered in hushed tones, their curiosity growing with each passing day. No one could confirm the horrifying claims, but the fear of eating something unspeakable loomed over the entire community. Determined to uncover the truth, a group of villagers decided to investigate. During the day, they organized themselves and visited John at his home, pretending it was just another friendly visit. As they approached, they found him busy cutting large chunks of meat into smaller portions. The sight seemed normal at first glance, just a butcher preparing for the market day. But the tension in the air was palpable, and their suspicions only deepened. John!" one of the villagers called out, forcing a laugh. "You're really working hard today. How much meat are you selling tomorrow? We might need to buy early before it finishes." John wiped his forehead with the back of his hand and chuckled nervously. "Ah, my people, you know market day is always busy. I'm just making sure everyone gets their share. Don't worry, there will be plenty for everyone." Despite his cheerful demeanor, the villagers couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. They exchanged glances, silently agreeing that this wasn't the time to confront him. Instead, they decided to return later, under the cover of darkness, when they believed John would reveal his true activities. That night, a small group of villagers gathered near John's house. Armed with lanterns and their courage, they crept quietly through the shadows, careful not to make any noise. As they approached, they saw a faint light flickering from the back of the house. "Shh," one of them whispered. "Let's get closer." Peeking through the cracks of the wooden fence, their hearts sank. There, under the dim glow of a single bulb, was John, bent over a table. He was cutting what appeared to be a human leg. The blood dripped onto the ground, pooling near his feet. The sight was more than they had ever prepared for. One of the villagers, unable to contain his shock, gasped loudly. John froze, his knife still in midair. He turned his head slowly, his face pale and his eyes wide with fear. "Hey! Who is there?" he called out, his voice trembling. "Come out now! You think you can spy on me and go free?" The villagers pushed the gate open and stormed in, their lanterns illuminating the gruesome scene. "John!" one of them shouted. "What are you doing? Are you slaughtering humans for us to eat?" John's face broke into a panicked smile as he stammered. "Ah, my friends, this is not what it looks like. You see, I was just trying to make something special for tomorrow's market." "Special?" another villager bellowed. "Do you think we are fools? What kind of special meat is this unless you're selling nyama ya watu, human meat?" John, realizing he was caught, tried to save himself with humor. "Hey, my people, you know meat is meat. At least it's soft and cooks fast, eh?" The crowd erupted in anger, their shock turning to rage. "You think this is funny?" one woman shouted. "Do you know how many people have disappeared in this village? How long have you been feeding us this abomination?" John dropped the knife and raised his hands in surrender. "Please don't hurt me. I was forced to do this. They made me do it. I had no choice." "Who are they?" someone demanded. John shook his head frantically. "I can't say. If I do, they'll kill me. Just, please forgive me." The villagers, disgusted and horrified, tied him up and handed him over to the authorities. The police soon uncovered more evidence linking John to the mysterious disappearances in the village. His butchery was shut down, and the entire community was left to grapple with the unsettling reality of what had been happening under their noses. In the aftermath of the scandal, the villagers vowed to be more vigilant. They organized regular meetings to discuss safety and ensure that everyone knew who they were buying meat from. Trust, once taken for granted, became a rare and precious thing. As for Amara, she could barely believe that the rumors were true. Sitting with her children one evening, she said, my children, you see why I always say we should pray before we eat? You never know what is on your plate these days." Her youngest, still processing everything, asked, "Mummy, does this mean we've eaten human meat before?" Amara sighed deeply. "I don't know, my dear, but one thing is certain. We must be careful from now on. Trust is like a pot. Once it's broken, it's hard to fix." The story of John's butchery became a cautionary tale in the village, passed down from one generation to the next. It reminded everyone of the importance of vigilance and the dangers of blind trust. As a lesson to others, Amara often quoted Proverbs 4:23. "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." She explained to her children that guarding one's heart also meant being cautious about the people they trusted and the choices they made. Despite the seriousness of the situation, the villagers never forgot John's ridiculous attempt to justify his actions. Whenever they needed a laugh, someone would mimic him, saying, "Meat is meat. At least it's soft and cooks fast." The phrase became a running joke, even as they continued to rebuild their trust and community bonds. The tale of John's butchery was one of horror, betrayal, and redemption. It served as a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is room for vigilance, faith, and a little humor to keep the spirit alive. Food is a basic need. No one can stop eating and stay alive. Therefore type, "Oh Lord, bless our food, guide us to trust its source, and protect us from